You want to know how to get a magic boomer excited? Tell them that Metalworker did good in an event. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and my friend Porter gave me a dealer's choice donation deck list, and when I saw that Metalworker had put up some results, I knew what I needed to do for the community. So back in my day, when I was sort of early on in my SCG grinding days, Metalworker was a fringe playable card. Like, emphasis on, like, actually playable, not just memes. You get to reveal any number of artifact cards in your hand, and you get 2 colorless mana for each one of the cards revealed this way. And so the idea was you play like a turn 1 or 2 Metalworker, you tap it for a whole bunch of mana, and then you start powering out crazy cards that are hard to answer or otherwise have really strong abilities. You know, your 6, 7 drops and beyonds, your Steel Hellkites, Mirror Battle Spheres, Blight Steel Colossus with Lightning Greaves to give it haste, and so on and so forth. And Mud, as the deck was called, was something that you would occasionally see at tournaments for those gamers who enjoy stacks pieces. Now, we live in a world where Metalworker has largely been power crept out of the Legacy format. You just need to be doing stuff faster within Legacy. But what if we just try to sink all of that mana into things that are going to be really, really annoying for our opponents? Is there still hope then? Stonecoil Serpent has protection from multicolored. And, alright, 2 minutes on my timer before I mention Psychic Frog. Psychic Frog is one of the defining cards in Legacy right now. And if you are able to generate a giant thing that can go through Psychic Frog or wall Psychic Frog forever, maybe you have time to do some cool stuff. And Agatha's Soul Cauldron is interesting here. Creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them have all activated abilities of all creatures exiled with Agatha's Soul Cauldron, including things like Walking Ballista that can ping, or, I don't know, Metalworker itself. And we're seeking to do an old school combo here. We would like to go infinite with Metalworker. Enter Staff of Domination. For 1 mana, you can untap Staff of Domination. For 3 mana, you can untap target creature. Let's say that you have 3 artifacts in your hand, and Metalworker produces 6 mana. Use 3 of that mana to untap your Metalworker. You retap your Metalworker, and you start doing this loop where you generate infinite colorless mana. Once you have infinite colorless mana, you can draw cards until you hit a Walking Ballista and ping your opponent to death. And you can even do so with some degree of protection with the One Ring, and some degree of redundancy with something like Agatha's Soul Cauldron. So we'll see if trying to make our Metalworkers uncounterable ends up being enough to produce a viable deck list here. I hope so. I don't have high hopes, but this should be a good nostalgia trip, or at least a good lesson in deck building. Folks, should you need any cards, please check out toamagic.com. Use promo code ThrabenU to save 5% on your order. For you Commander players out there, as of about 30 minutes ago when I am recording this episode, you just got hit with some massive bans. You might need some cards to add to your deck. Well, TOA probably has them. With that being said, let's battle. Bill from the future here. Rounds 3 and rounds 5 are probably the most interesting in terms of this deck doing its thing if you're on a limited time budget. Enjoy the show. Okay. Opening hand is probably good enough to be a keep. And the only question here is this a One Ring hand or an Urza Saga hand? I think we start by trying to play it as an Urza Saga hand and pivot into the One Ring after a few turns. Ooh, that's really loud on my end. Sorry if you heard that. Let's call it a turn there. Scalding Tarn. Which flavor of blue-black are you? Alright, puzzle solved. We are playing against something in the Delver ballpark. Although the Delver decks often don't actually have a true Delver anymore. What's the exact text on Consigned to Memory again? I don't remember if it's activated or triggered abilities or Target triggered ability. Okay, so my activated abilities are still fine. I'll pass the turn there then. Oh, my cat absolutely just knocked something over in the living room. That's Future Phil's problem, though. That's fine. Do I have a Shadow Spear in this deck? What are my bullets? No, I've got Retrofitter, Foundry, Lava Spur Boots, Vexing Bauble, or additional mana, if I believe that is correct. Yeah, Grixis was going to be my suspicion here. So this is a 2-3 coming into my 3-3. There's no instant in the graveyard yet. I don't think a block makes sense accordingly. I'll just take that. So I make my creature. It's a 3-3. My opponent can Lightning Bolt this right now. Yeah, and if I did this in combat, I end up taking 1 more damage. So we played around that. Let's go. Yeah. Make a friend. It is a 3-3. This lives through Lightning Bolt. Vexing Bauble for these 1 rings is probably pretty good. So I now have a 5-5. We'll pass the turn. Our opponent would love to find something that gets his construct token out of the way. Think Fatal Push, Brazen Borrower, that sort of stuff. There's probably 6 or 7 1-mana removal spells in my opponent's deck if I were to guess. Mockingbird. Sure. My opponent's going to get a second Nethergoyf. 3 of a kind. Alright. Agatha's Soul Cauldron. That's not doing a lot right now. I could kind of play this game conservatively and just start chipping away at my opponent's graveyards to keep these things small. I'm always playing this land. I think I need to find another dude, though. I think I'm going to go ahead and 1 ring, take protection from everything, and draw some cards. Yeah, that's fantastic. Given that... do I want to attack with this 7/7? No. I'll just pass the turn here. And I think my second set of Urza Saga tokens ends up winning me this game. Oh shit, it was my opponent's Metalworker list. I'm fine with just telling them that it's their list. They say, they hope I like it, and that it was fun. Well, I'm having fun so far. Alright, so I would like to add a little bit more power to the board. I think I'm okay with drawing a few more cards. Yeah, this is going to be uncounterable due to Vexing Bauble. Although my Lotus Petal will get countered. I can't play that one out. So let's go, yeah. This is worth the life. X equals 5. Now I'll go to combat. Fuck, this one flies. Except it's a bird in addition to its other types. Got it. I'm a little worried about just dying to my opponent going wide of me. Like, I do have the 1 ring. I'm probably not tapping Ancient Tomb any times this game. Yeah. So I would like to take this out. I think I need to hit that one. This is a little weird because these could, I guess, technically get bigger because of Psychic Frog. Like, Instant Sorcery and Land are in there right now. Yeah, opponent forgot to give it flying. I thought that was intentional to keep the Nethergoyfs larger. Alright. Oh, I'm a little bit in trouble, but I'm not, like, that much in trouble. I will just cast a new copy of the 1 ring. My opponent can't hardcast Force of Will. I can play around Daze. I guess I could die to Bowmasters if I activate that. Let's just not worry. Now let's draw those cards. If, like, I'd already be dead if my opponent could Bowmaster. I think I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and 4 to cast the 1 ring. Daze is fine. I tap this. Oh, is it another Daze? Fuck, it's another Daze. I can't play this Lotus Petal. I can hit my opponent for 13, then I die to the 1 ring trigger. Rats. So close there. Alright, here's the lifelink that I wanted in game 1. That's coming in. And then some amount of this stuff comes in. I don't think the Brazen Borrowers do. I don't think I'm grinding. That change is easy. And we figure out what I'm doing to get these dismembers in here. It's a little awkward to dismember things like Nethergoyf. They just come back. Metalworker's slow here and fragile. That probably means that I just try to play these as fair cards. Play a 4th one of these, round out the deck with one of these, That is, I guess, reasonable. That doesn't do much. Don't think I like that. This is a turn 1 Emry, and it doesn't do anything after that. I don't think this one's a keep. I think I go to 5. Oh my god. This is not good. Or Ancient Tomb, Urza Saga keep. Ancient Tomb Patchwork on 1. Urza Saga on 2. With like a Mox Opal for persistent mana. This is not great. This is not great at all. We'll scale that up a little bit. I'm in big trouble to a Wasteland. I mean, I think okay versus a casual threat of some kind. Yeah, I think that's fine. That is a good use of my mana. So before I give my opponent a chance to counter anything... No, actually, fine. Because this is going to scale Patchwork up by 1. So do I cast this for X equals 2 or X equals 1? Sorry, like, do I go all in versus Daze? I think I go all in. I am very far behind, and I think I just want to create the largest possible creature. Alright, there is the Force of Will. Yeah, so the Patchwork is still able to attack into the Goyf if my opponent counters it, because they both got 1 bigger. My opponent goes to 15. I'm very scared of Wasteland. If we dodge that, I'm potentially fine. Yep. And we don't have our friend to wall this anymore. My Patchwork Automaton cannot currently attack. And activating Urza Saga doesn't make this bigger. This gets bigger on cast. Ooh. Yep. So there's some little trixies to just immediately grow the Goyf. Ancient Tomb is not what I am looking for. I can't attack with Patchwork into Psychic Frog. My opponent will certainly save that. I am going to be making my land drop and passing, unfortunately. I think this is just going to be a case where I've gone down too many cards from mulligans, and I probably don't claw my way back out. Like, I could take 8 or more points of damage this turn. Don't think I'm trying to double block this. My opponent is, like, giving me this. That's 5 power. I think if I make Urza's Saga and try to double block Psychic Frog, my opponent just has a removal spell for the Urza Saga token, and then I also lose Patchwork. So I think I'm taking the hit. It just sucks. There's a slightly bigger Psychic Frog. There's a slightly bigger Psychic Frog. Takes 7. I die next turn. Oh? Well, fuck me. I die this turn. GG's. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and honestly, they're just the best at what they do. If you need to keep your deck lists online, this is the way to do it. They have all sorts of different viewing options. You can condense that text if you like things to be tight. You can make them visual grids. You can put them in stacks. You've got all sorts of different ways to kind of view and visualize your deck lists, and they also have some really cool functionality, like allowing you to see playtest hands and even fully playtest your decks. So check them out. My opening hand here simply does not have enough mana to be functional. With one more land, like maybe we could get a Metalworker out there and then start doing cute Walking Ballista things, but without that extra land, because Mox Opal is not going to be turned on immediately, I think this one is no bueno. Oh my gosh. Okay. Urza Saga, Petal, Metalworker on 1, have 2 colorless cards in hand for a decent-sized Walking Ballista, but then the Urza Saga doesn't really do anything. I think instead this becomes a, like, sorry Metalworker, play turn 1 Emry, hope for the best hand. That's sad. The one thing I've noticed a lot when trying to play what I'm going to call cute artifact strategies is that a lot of the cool things the deck are capable of, doing just get overshadowed by the raw power of things like Urza Saga. Well, there's a punish for putting the Metalworker back. Let's play out all 3 pieces of artifact mana here. And then after we have the Mox Opal, we can go ahead and Emry. Patchwork Automaton, Staff of Domination. It is just kicking me in the teeth for throwing back Metalworker. I'll pass the turn here. And we are probably just going to be in make Urza Saga tokens and make them bigger mode for a little while. My opponent is potentially going to be playing some sort of Leyline Binding style up the Beanstalk deck list. So we should be expecting a longer game on average here. That is a perfectly fine draw. I don't think I'm going to think about this too much. I think we are going to go ahead and just make an Urza's Saga and get a Patchwork Automaton for the future. Believe that that is a strong enough play that that is worth both of those Lotus Petals in the short term. That's fine. I'll try to do that again next turn. So the issue is that if my opponent removes the Construct token in the short term, I lose out on the second Urza's Saga token. Oh, holy beans, Batman. Don't do it. Oh, that. So I am getting another Urza Saga token because my opponent did not take me off of Metalcraft. Like, I know Emry is good and all, but there was a lot of short-term power to be had by choosing another target. I don't have another mana to equip this turn. I think I am into my shit's uncounterable. My copies of Walking Ballista are really weak right now. The Agatha Soul Cauldron is not bad. That just starts turning my creatures into Staff of Dominations, which, while it's not overly interesting, impressive right now, it's a little scary. Metalworker, you are almost good. Would you like to turn a Force of Will into 2 other cards? Negative. There's no sorcery speed restriction on this or anything. Send them. This has to be chump blocked, or otherwise my opponent needs to use a removal spell here. Let's junk Staff of Domination. Right, the +1/+1 counter only happens if it's a creature. Sure. That's okay. I want the Staff of Domination under there to set up for a Metalworker Infinite anyway. So now my opponent can start looking for Leyline Bindings that will draw 2 cards and try to exhaust my resources over time. Oh shit, I can give my Construct token Broadside's ability. Ooh, that is interesting. The best use for Metalworker might be being food for my Broadside. That's no fetch land there. Leyline of the Guild Pact. So we should expect that Scion of Draco is coming. Am I throwing Agatha's Soul Cauldron for 4 points of damage? And then playing a new Agatha's Soul Cauldron? Yes. Play a Walking Ballista first, so I can have another creature that can attack next turn, I think. So yeah. Send it. After no blocks. Eat Broadside. A +1/+1 counter here. My opponent goes to 6. Choose you. Throw Soul Cauldron at your face for 4. You are effectively at 1 life because of Walking Ballista. And I can play a new Agatha's Soul Cauldron if that resolves. Walking Ballista finishes off my opponent. Otherwise, I have a new Walking Ballista in hand. That was a cool performance. I don't know if I should have won that game, just statistically, after my opponent has double up the Beanstalk. But we did. So, what's the game plan for beating a Scion of Draco? Bounce the Leyline out of play? Probably. I don't hate bringing in some Brazen Borrowers accordingly. I can consider something like Dismembers for something like opposing Broadside. I can consider Pithing Needle for that. I can consider Basilisk Collar. I can consider the extra Vexing Bubble. I guess my primary question is, what don't I want? And I am not sure the answer to that question. I think I do actually want Metalworker for Staff of Domination Infinites here. I maybe don't need all 4. I think I want to find at least 2 cuts. Uncoil Serpent Protection from Multicolored could be relevant here. Retrofitter Foundry, even good. Like, am I going to search that up over Boots or Bobble? Unclear. I could do something like that. Just trim extra copies of things rather than cutting any one thing. Okay. So I have 2 mana on turn 1, assuming that I play Lotus Petal. I can just play Stonecoil Serpent or Walking Ballista. Neither one of those things is exciting. I don't think this hand is on track to win the game. It gets improved by a decent number of draws, but I think I have more powerful things that I can be doing. This probably qualifies. So turn 1, Otawara, Mox Opal first, then Vexing Bauble. Then turn 2, Patchwork and a second Vexing Bauble. Or play Patchwork on 1. I think the hand's a keep. I think I will keep the Agatha Soul Cauldron. I think that's going to be annoying. Depending on my draw, sometimes I just play Patchwork sometimes I just play Patches on 1. Make my opponent fucking deal with it. I think given how much mana I have coming, I like that idea. So we'll do this now. Since I don't have Metalcraft, I don't think I need to dump Mox Opal into play immediately. In case I draw a second Patchwork Automaton for turn. Triome. Is that guy again. So, play an artifact, sack this land, play a Mox Opal, scale this up, play a Vexing Bauble, play an Agatha's Soul Cauldron, play a new Vexing Bauble. This is a 5/5 Patchwork Automaton that is maybe a 6/6, and I can't super attack it into Psychic Frog, because I think if my opponent discards all of their cards and creates a 6/7 Psychic Frog, that I will just fucking die to it. I don't have guaranteed mana for Otawara. I think I am holding back. It sucks that I have a 5/5 on this early in the game and I just can't use it. Scion of Draco, you've got it. So this is a just 4/4 creature. It gives extra keywords to Psychic Frog. It's not great for me. Oh fuck, I needed to respond to that first activation. No, it doesn't matter, they just discard in response. Yeah. Many graveyard hate things don't actually really interact with Psychic Frog. I could have done it on, I guess, my own turn, eaten a land, to make my opponent discard one more card if they want to get through. Urza's Saga. Sure. That makes using Otawara very awkward. My opponent's Psychic Frog has lifelink. I think I'm supposed to cycle here. I think I just need more resources. This is hexproof currently. I'm just gonna die. I'm just outright going to die. If I bounce Psychic Frog, if I bounce Scion of Draco, my opponent just replays it. If I play Urza Saga as my land and then draw another land, I can give up Urza Saga value to do Otawara nonsense. Alright. I think I'm gonna crash in. I just don't see a realistic path to victory, though. Oh, no. No. I have to get Scion of Draco out of play so that my opponent can't fling that at my face. But that just kills me next turn. I get hit for 5-ish damage immediately. My opponent draws a card. Yeah, my removal not being permanent here matters. Yep. I think that's just it. So, my temporary Brazen Borrower removal did not line up well versus what was going on over there, since my opponent had multiple creatures. If I want to be better against my opponent's early game, the answer is play the Dismembers. But this infinite combo being threatened is what makes my end game good. But it wasn't their end game that beat me there. This hand does not have any pressure whatsoever. Citadel, Mox Opal, Vexing Bauble, Metalcraft, Emry, follow up with Urza Saga. This is a keep. Then the question is Brazen Borrower good, or would I prefer land drop 3? I think I would prefer land drop 3. There's a good chance that after losing Urza Saga, I just need a little bit more mana. We need to play Mox Opal prior to Vexing Bauble. Yeah. Emry happens. Ooh. Emry finds me a pretty reasonable card. The Lotus Petals are not as good as they look here. Don't do it. No. So now we pivot into an Urza Saga game and hope that that is good enough. We've got some land types. Tamiyo, sure. Member would be a cool draw. The One Ring. That is also a cool draw. I don't believe that I'm going to give up my Urza Saga value to cast it. This is a lot of pressure. especially when coupled with Lava Spur Boots, which is what I'm currently thinking about getting off of Urza Saga. Sure, sure. That's beans. I care less about those when Force of Will is off. Emio does clue stuff. I'll make a robot friend. Oh, I didn't even lose the robot friend immediately. That's great. Swords is fine. It's obviously good for my opponent still. I think I would like to attack immediately. I believe that the One Ring is going to give me enough to do with my mana that I don't necessarily need to get Retrofitter Foundry out of the deck. Gross. Hexproof. Opponent gets a new clue. Clues can be thrown with Broadside later, which is cool and all. Bouncing Scion of Draco out of play. Not that great of a value proposition here. Okay. Planeswalker time. Sure. So this is really a 5-power attacker. Vexing Bauble would counter this. So I, in theory, want to attack the Tamiyo, have my opponent double block a Brazen Borrower 1 out of play. Yeah? Okay, opponent does go for it. So we'll Petty Theft 1 out of play. Now, I think I just have to pass the turn. And next turn, I can play a Brazen Borrower and give it haste. Opponent can get back a Swords with Tamiyo. This one's slipping fast. It's possible, oh geez, that I needed to just ignore the stuff that was going on. Like, try to ignore the combat trick, play the One Ring, and start trying to spiral that. Not really too late for me to do so. But life's bad. Alright, so there's the ward. I lose little buddy. Cameo pluses. Cameo ultimates at 7. Hasty Brazen Borrower this turn, while the Scion of Draco doesn't block it. Seems reasonable. Also reasonable is just doing Patchwork Automaton this turn and trying to make it bigger than Scion of Draco for the following turn. That might be better. So, yeah. This is for a counter. Send at Tamiyo for just a couple points of damage here. This is not good. Tamiyo's just going up rather than returning the swords. That's a really bad sign for me. Just rules note here. This does have multiple instances of ward right now. So it's probably not dying in combat. Not easily, anyway. Never mind, it's dying easily in combat. Fuck Psychic Frog, man. Yeah, so this would have been enough to reasonably go into Scion of Draco. Opponent can give Psychic Frog flying. So now instead, we need to do this. That's good enough for a response from my opponent. What is that going to be? Getting a color? I already had Tundra up. Oh, it's a replicate, sure. And I think at this point, with Psychic Frog and Scion and a Tamiyo that's about to ultimate, no ability to remove either one of these, we can toss in the towel. GG's. So, are we going to play this the tournament optimal way, or are we going to play this the way where we actually get to see Metalworker? Let's play it in the way where we actually get to see Metalworker. Yeah. 3-mana Metalworker. Well, we tried. That's what we get for not just going Urza Saga Vexing Bauble into Ancient Tomb. We can maybe do some Agatha's Soul Cauldron nonsense. I believe that we are going to do this in the Patchwork Automaton optimal way, rather than the anti-counterspell way, which is a little backwards, but that's fine. I was going to say, if you have main deck consigned to memory, I'm a riot. Agatha's Soul Cauldron is not immediately good here. My mana is just a little tied up in the short term. So I'll bash in for my 2, and then do some Urza Saga nonsense. Yeah, you can have your land. That's fine. That's just a fetch to shuffle for the Brainstorm. What 3-drop are we rocking here? Back to basics, Teferi, yep. Targeting the Urza Saga. Oh, that's fine. Like, I'm not in a rush. I will just kill my opponent's Teferi and move on with my life. I don't have enough artifacts in hand to just kill my opponent, with Staff of Domination combo here. So, yeah. Okay, I was just checking to make sure that my own stuff doesn't get countered here. I'm going to put a counter on this for the sake of diversity. That kills Teferi. That attacks you directly. Not that the Teferi super matters, but if my opponent were to do something like play a Supreme Verdict, I would not want the Planeswalker to still be around. Oops, all Teferis. Sure. Do I want to crack Vexing Bauble? Not really. Ooh. And Walking Ballista for X equals 2. Vexing Bauble is making my stuff effectively uncounterable? Yeah. Actually, let's play... No, playing the new Urza Saga doesn't matter. So, do this thing. Go to combat. Player attackers. Attack Siggy. No blocks. Ping you. Ping you. Agatha Soul Cauldron. Target Walking Ballista. Put a +1/+1 counter on Patchwork Automaton. Hit you for 5. Hey, this is the thing this deck was designed to do. We're finally really seeing it in round 3. I don't know how much I'm going to sideboard here. Probably want this. I maybe want to trim one of those. I could bring in a Pithing Needle for Planeswalkers. Could bring in Brazen Borrower for some weird stuff like Back to Basics that I might see. I think I'm going to call that little adjustment good enough. Seat. Mox Opal, 1 mana Emry. Most of the time I get more mana to continue playing Magic. I think this is slightly awkward, but good enough to be a keep. Not 100% sure. But I have 2 or 3 draws towards any mana source. Yeah, like that's totally fine. So yeah, and yeah, and yeah. Oh, I fucked up. I can play Retrofitter Foundry as well this turn. We'll say it's part of a big-brained plan to play Retrofitter Foundry on turn 2 to put a +1/+1 counter on Patchwork Automaton, which, now that I'm thinking about it, is probably actually better. So, Patchwork, don't do it. He's just a little guy. He's so cute. Look at him. I've always found the artwork slightly confusing for this card. Don't you dare consign to memories me. Good. Let's scale this up. Now, as a reminder, Agatha's Soul Cauldron cares about the creature having a +1/+1 counter, not about Agatha's Soul Cauldron specifically putting the counter on it. Alright, Retrofitter Foundry is gone. I don't really care about that card anyway. The Soul Cauldron is worth a +1/+1 counter right now. I have to think about Supreme Verdict. I would kind of prefer to use the Soul Cauldron the turn that I can get a relevant Emry activation, though. So I think I'm just going to play a Duder. Crash in for 3. Opponent's at 14, facing down a decent amount of damage. Show me the verdict. That's not the verdict. It's pretty good, though. Ooh, they're holding back. They're not going for Monarch immediately. So I cast this, scale this up. Then I should play Agatha's Soul Cauldron, scale this up. Become Walking Ballista, I think? Cast this, scale this up again. Go to... Yeah. Okay, this is what we came here to do, folks. This is what this deck does. I was a little worried after rounds 1 and 2, but this is actually pretty cool. Unfortunately, the Metalworker portion is still pretty weak as compared to just the value dudes reuse triggers portion. My opening hand here contains only a single colorless mana. My opponent's a fan. You're in a video. We've got a mulligan this one. Sure. This is fine to good. The Metalworker's not even good, though. Like, it's so much better for me to just play a Patchwork Automaton, Emry, Retrofitter Foundry game, and then Urza Saga token, and Metalworker fits nowhere in that plan. That's really unfortunate. I'm going to 5 cards. If we are playing against an opposing combo deck, I don't really have a lot for that. We've been playing against mostly fair stuff. Current Legacy is pretty fair, relatively speaking, in that blue-black X decks and Eldrazi are kind of taking over the format. Uncoil Serpent is interesting. I don't think I'm doing that. I could if I don't play Emry this turn. Emry might matter. How good is Urza Saga immediately versus just dumping mana into other cards? I could just Urza Saga and Stonecoil Serpent. I don't hate that. Just make a couple of lovable, punchy boys. Try to go wide of my opponent's presumably fair creature-based deck. It could be some sort of prison thing. Like, we could just see Ancient Tomb this turn. There was no... Oh, no, there was a Yorion revealed. What you got? Stoneforge Mystic. Finding Cauldron. I can maybe go wide of that. That's not a bad draw. So, scale up Patchwork. Cast Emry. Nothing super relevant there. Yeah. Don't have Haywire Might in this deck list, so I can't super easily just get rid of Cauldron. But if my opponent can only block one thing with the Cauldron, that doesn't feel good enough without something like a Solitude backing it up. My Urza Saga construct tokens are going to be massive. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8s. One of them being a 9 from Shadow Spear. 3 mana for a Skyclave. Oh, that's unexpected. I do not even view that Emry as particularly strong here. Like, I think this game is about life totals more so than anything else. Well, I have another Emry anyway. So, yeah. Lava Spur Boots. Whip to a Construct token. Yep. So my opponent can technically survive the turn, but the damage is done. Pithing Needle's okay. Basilisk Collar's okay. Removal spells are okay. Torpor Orb, okay. Vexing Bobble's bad here for the first time. They technically do things versus Solitude, but they probably get in my way more so than anything else. Don't think Retrofitter Foundry is particularly good. These are just more relevant early game cards. In for Torpor Orb. Then I decide how many of these sorts of cards I want. Emrys are really awkward versus a 4x Caracas deck, but I am cutting a lot of early game already. So, like, sorry, not that one. I cut 4 early game cards. I replaced 2 of those, so I'm down 2 early game cards. If I treat Emry as a 1 mana, like, turn 1 play, I'm going down a lot of early plays. If I take out the Emrys for Dismembers, that might mean that we go to some of this sort of stuff. I don't know, maybe I just hedge strongly versus Caracas. Keep my infinite combo. Not sure with 0 reps on the deck. I could also play the Retrofitter Foundry over the 1 Vexing Bubble that I just boarded in. The Vexing Bubble is a redraw. Okay. This hand fucks. This hand fucks really hard. Because this reveals artifact cards. Not like, it doesn't have to be a creature or anything, so I have a bunch of lands that I can reveal here. So assuming that my opponent does not reveal this Metalworker, I am going to have a giant, just absolutely giant Walking Ballista on turn 2. Let's live the dream. Delphius, you're a fan of the channel. Legally, you have to let me untap with the Metalworker. It's the law. You can't Swords to Plowshares. The Metalworker. Delphius! Okay. Life's bad. The Ancient Tomb on top of that was really rough, because that meant that I couldn't just immediately drop another Metalworker, so I'm going to be down at least 2 cards by the time I... Ooh, Legend Roll. By the time I actually get to activate this Metalworker. Like, it is no bueno. Ancient Tomb would be a sick draw. I mean, that's not bad. Don't Stoneforge me, I guess. Technically, not Stoneforge. Do I have any basics? I do. I mean, I guess I'm happy that that took out an artifact line that doesn't matter, rather than my Urza Saga that was coming in 1 turn cycle. My opponent can be working towards Yorion here. Oh, sure. Yeah, that's a little bit of a pain. I don't, like, really want to dismember that. Yeah, so this Metalworker makes 2 mana. I think I have to believe in the Metalworker. I don't think I'm probably winning without it. And I am going to send in some stuff can happen here. Not this time. Alright, so what if we draw an artifact and it's really cool and sexy, and then my opponent dies somehow? Yeah, so my opponent is working towards their 5-drop. Don't do another one. Fuck. I think I only had one island, right? Yeah. Oh no. This is illegal. You killed 2 metalworkers, Delphius. 2 of them. That's rough. And Urza Saga is doing Urza Saga stuff. I could pretend to play Magic for another turn or two, but the combination of Urza Saga and Yorion is just going to beat me. Is Retrofitter Foundry more relevant than Vexing Bubble? Think they are both irrelevant. This does not have enough mana to be functional. This is weird. This has no game plan. Agatha Soul Cauldron is not great without creatures in graveyard. Walking Ballista does not have enough support. This is not great with an Ancient Tomb. I would rather go to 5 than keep this. I think I keep this one. That always goes back. And I think this one goes back. Possible this goes back. And I just play this earlier, hoping to leverage this into just any dude. Yeah, I think if I want to keep this and play a 1-ring game, I do so by keeping Basilisk Collar. Basilisk Collar is my plan to offset all of my self-damage from the 1-ring and Ancient Tomb. And if my opponent throws down a Spirit of the Labyrinth, then it wasn't meant to be. Okay, well, we have hedged against this unintentionally by boarding out Emrys. So I guess that's fine. Draw my cards. Play things out preemptively because of Thalia-like cards, and pass. Alright, second basic plains. That's a true land destruction spell. I drew my 1 island. Hold on, let's take a look. Nope. No more magical islands. Hopefully that land destruction spell doesn't matter that much because the 1-ring just draws me into more mana. Draws me into more mana? Ow? I think I'll just take that out now. That is going to do enough damage to me over the course of the remainder of the game where removing it is relevant. And I am not willing to take 2 points of damage to give my opponent the extra time. Notably, we are very close to assembling a classic combo of Basilisk Collar Walking Ballista. So Basilisk Collar gives something Death Touch, and that means that removing 1 counter from Walking Ballista, fuck me, is just lethal. Because of the Death Touch. Death Touch plus pingers equals good. Well, ugh. I would like my 4/4, please. And we'll do this before something weird like an Ephemerate could mess with my Dismember. But I am from 9, largely from my own cards here. Yeah, that's fine. I also think my opponent missed 1 Relic of Progenitus activation in the first turn cycle. Memory serves. Ooh, did they just Legend Roll their Flagstone without floating mana? That's a whoopsie. Swords, so I don't get to equip and go in. There's a Thalia. Sure. Life is kind of cruel, huh? So we are going to do this. I am going to go ahead and just ping the Thalia now so that I can play out this Lotus Petal. Now, we are not overly concerned. Let me rephrase that. My opponent does not have many cards in hand, but the Yorion Companion here helps to mitigate that. And they also have the Relic of Progenitus on board that they can cash in at any time for another card. Recruiter is great. Getting Stoneforge Mystic and just trying to Cauldron me out of the game. I think that's reasonable. I think at this point I'm going to go ahead and toss in the towel. Like, I can play Naked Patchwork Automaton, hope to draw more mana, but what I'm doing there is not outpacing the Cauldron. GG's. Alright, how much mana is in this deck? 19, 27, okay. I feel like I have mulliganed an exceptional number of hands for just not having functional mana at all. Maybe the count needs to be closer to 30. Okay, I have a 5-card hand that can try to make cool things happen with the 1-ring. Bring back 1 Mox Opal, and I don't know that I get to double Ancient Tomb here with the 1-ring without any other follow-up. I think I'm going to keep this, hope that Mox Opal gets turned on by my draws. We're going to lead on Minamo, I think. I am not going to play these on turn 1 in case I draw a Patchwork Automaton and want to pivot. See if I get punished by, like, Ancient Tomb Sphere of Resistance or something like that. guess Vexing Bauble would be more common. Sure. We would love to see a 0-cost artifact or something like that to allow us to One Ring immediately. Alternatively, any 1 mana card is fine. Hello, Metalworker. Here to try to fucking redeem yourself in the final round. I'm crawling back. It is almost certainly a mistake to play the Metalworker. But for you YouTube, I'll play the Metalworker. So it's almost certainly a mistake because trying to resolve the One Ring is what this game is all about. And Metalworker is answerable with all those like Lightning Bolt, Fatal Push, Swords to Plowshares type cards. So I'm really opening up more ways for my copy of the One Ring to be interacted with. Maybe we look out though. After seeing Ancient Tomb, there's not too many things that are just going to remove the Metalworker immediately. Really? Chalice on 1? Okay, that's fine. So, tappity tap tap tap. 1, 2, 3. Make 6 mana. Use 4 of it for the One Ring. Get protection from everything. Draw a card. Don't have anything to do yet. Hopefully we will have something to do next turn. I don't know exactly what we're playing against yet. I don't have a color confirmed. The Moon Stompy decks are shifting away from Chalice to Vexing Bauble, so it's probably not red. The colorless could be blue. It is Eldrazi. Oh cool, it's just Eldrazi Repurposer. That could have been so much worse. I'll lose a little life here, and then hopefully do some hot Metalworker nonsense. Ooh, Patchwork can do some cool shit here, even if the stuff gets countered. Let's reveal some artifacts. Reveal 4 cards. Use 2 mana to cast a Patchwork Automaton. Do I keep you in hand? I probably just draw enough artifacts where I don't have to keep you in hand. Let's just make a big boy. 8/8. Does 8/8 need to be 10/10? Is that worth 2 life? That is potentially worth 2 life. I'm going to keep the Mox Opal in hand in the short term to be 2 mana. I probably dump it next turn. Your move. Opponent's got a decent amount of mana of their own. I have the ground stalled. 2 mana blue-green Eldrazi that can exile artifacts and enchantments is good here. Blanking on the name of it right now. Opponent's going red for Eldrazi Linebreaker, presumably. Is a Kozilek's Command. I think I'm going to be punished for not playing out Mox Opal. My opponent can give the Linebreaker haste and then attack in with both of their creatures. And my Patchwork is not a 3/3 to trade with Linebreaker. Yeah, that's devastating. That's so much damage. Okay. I may end up losing this one. Let's find out. Really hoping for a new copy of the One Ring. So this is 6 mana. I am definitely using 1 mana for Emry. I am definitely playing Urza's Saga. I am definitely playing a large Stonecoil Serpent. I want to have a large Lifelinker. If I can get something like Basilisk Collar into play. I think at this point I don't care about these being mana anymore. I think I'm just trying to kill next turn. Am I attacking? Not sure that I can attack. It's so easy for my opponent to play another creature, attack, poke me for 2 points of damage, and then this kills me. So I think I am chilling. And we hope to find a new One Ring next turn to allow me to play Sword and Shield. Kind of funny that we popped off so hard with Metalworker, yet it probably didn't do enough to just win a game of Magic. Alright, opponent passes. This turn's a big deal. I'm always dead to my One Ring, so let's draw some more cards. Oh no. Walking Ballista save me in some capacity. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11 mana. Let's assume that this works. I'm not doing the math. So, 8 mana, Emry, target Walking Ballista. Oh, don't Kozilek's Command me. Cool. We're going to do this for X equals 5. Grow Patchwork Automaton. Vexing Bauble gets countered. This gets countered. This gets countered. Remove you pre-combat. Yeah. 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 Go to punchies. Send in, force the chump block. I get 8 damage in. My opponent gets a spawn. Pass turn. We need a little faith here. The top of my library has a large number of artifacts. It is sowing Myco spawn. Opponent didn't want to tap their ancient tomb for some reason. Seems weird to me. It is a wasteland. That's probably not relevant. That's fine. So, now, for the Yu-Gi-Oh-ist of Yu-Gi-Oh moments ever on this channel, we need to believe in the heart of the cards. I am going to draw in response to my trigger. I need to draw a bunch of things for Metalworker mana here. I need a bunch of artifacts. Oh, that is a bunch of artifacts. Tap. 1, 2, 3, and 4. That leaves me just short. I can deal 4 damage to my opponent directly, and then die to my own trigger. I don't have an Agatha Soul Cauldron in play. Yeah, 2 points of damage away from victory. So very close. Alright, Damping Sphere is reasonable. Dismembers are probably necessary. The life loss doesn't feel good. I probably need Basilisk's Collar. I am probably getting rid of Vexing Baubles. I can play Pithing Needle if I want. Retrofitter Foundry is incredibly slow. This gives me 1 Dismember as a starting point. It's probably correct to play more Dismembers and cut some number of this stuff. But let's see if we can get some nice Metalworker screenshots at the end of the league here. Ancient Tomb, play Patchwork, play Mox Opal. Mox Opal will be on for turn 2. I don't get Pithing Needle in before it can wasteland me. This hand's really good if I draw a mana source. I think I'm going to try to believe. Alright. So, Patchwork into Opal and pass. Going to be a relatively aggressive Patchwork Automaton that is going to be difficult to remove. See what my opponent finds. Sowing Myco spawn. Sure. Just play a land. Don't wasteland me. Yeah. Stone Coil Serpent. Is doing that this turn better than Agatha's Soul Cauldron? It's just another thing that can attack next turn. I'd prefer to play that for a larger X value, though. I think I am going to just play Walking Ballista for 1, so that I can potentially combine that with Agatha's Soul Cauldron and all these Patchwork Automaton, who's-he-what's-its, +1/+1 counters. Then we'll go ahead and Pithing Needle Wasteland, so that Sowing Myco spawn that we know is coming doesn't obliterate us that way. I really wanted to be leveraging the 1 ring here, but we don't get to. With an Eye of Ugin coming down, the scariest thing is a chain of cards involving a Glaring Fleshraker. My opponent tapped and untapped some mana. If they're just passing the turn here, it means that they have Kozilek's Command. So cast a Lotus Petal, scale this up, play the 1 ring. I don't know, playing Agatha's Soul Cauldron is really good. Like, really, really, really good. Helps a lot versus spawns that could be coming. Let's do that. And I know I talked about doing this for a large X value, but I think this is where we're at. Send in for half of my opponent's life total. Alright, so my opponent is attempting to make 2 spawns and kill my Walking Ballista. Specifically exile it. We're going to ping my opponent's face. I am going to exile Walking Ballista. I'm going to put an additional +1/+1 counter on Patchwork Automaton. Okay, command resolves. I will see if my... Actually, no, I just don't want my opponent to fucking block. Get out. Nice, no floating of mana. Don't even need to think about the second one. Now, Patchwork Automaton combined with the 1 ring probably just pushes my opponent out of this game. And I can keep, like, with all these +1/+1 counters, the smaller creatures like Glaring Fleshraker are no longer that threatening. Alright, red and green mana are online. There's a Glaring Fleshraker. As soon as I get priority, I think I should kill that. For Gaia's Cradle purposes, I probably just do kill that right now. Yeah. And yeah. My opponent just failed to find a land card. We're gonna assume that that was a pretty bad misclick. Yup. Ooh, Dismember is good. I Dismember Sowing Myco spawn. I ping this. I attack my opponent for 5. I remove the remaining counters. It's just lethal. Yeah. So ping here now. Alright, opponent didn't even float mana. Dismember, target this. Actually, I want to do this first in case something weird like fairy happens. Get my +1/+1 counter. Then dismember this. I'll pay the life. Send in. Opponent's at 4. I have 4 +1/+1 counters. 2, 3, and 4. Now we do still have to get another game win here. Opponent's down a lot of clock. That shouldn't matter when they are playing Eldrazi, though. So, when I am on the draw, do I want to be a reasonable human being and play more Dismembers? Yeah. Am I going to? Let's say no for the content. It's 100% correct to just, like, not be playing Metalworker and Staff of Domination, but let's do it. See if we can go infinite once. I have a turn 2 Damping Sphere. That's a little slow. I also just have, like, the whole Patchwork, Soul Cauldron, Walking Ballista thing. I'm going to keep this and hope that I draw a piece of fast mana within 2 draws. That would really ramp this hand up. If my opponent gets out in front of us here, that has minimal text. That has some text. So this is Seat. Emry here still costs 2 mana, so this is not a turn 1 play. We'll just be passing. I have really good options after this turn cycle. Something I say a lot on this channel is a lock piece without a follow-up is not a keep. My opponent needs a follow-up like this one to make their hand strong. So, which one of my cards is it most important to play immediately? Patchwork Ballista, Soul Cauldron is how I intend on winning. Damping Sphere can keep my opponent from doing some crazier things with the Ancient Tomb mana. The Damping Sphere might get in my own way. I think that I'm going to play Patchwork Automaton in the hopes of playing a 1-mana Emry next turn, milling a Walking Ballista or Metalworker, and then having a crazy turn. If I mill a Metalworker, I make a gajillion mana, and it is very easy for me to just win. Wastscape Battle Mage. That taking out one of my lands is pretty reasonable. Oh wait, it wasn't kicked. Cool. That's it? Cool. I feel like we are getting away with murder here. A Lotus Petal. This is still worth a +1/+1 counter. So I'm going to start with my 1-mana play. I mill no relevant artifacts. Disappointing. So then I'm always doing this. I'm always casting this for a +1/+1 counter. That's fine. No creature in graveyard means that this is not great this turn. I think I am interested in multi-spelling. I don't think I like Damping Sphere right now. I think colored mana, not amount of mana, is the bottleneck over there. Let's take another +1/+1 counter. I might be the beatdown here. I think I'm going to give my opponent a chance to block with their spawn token. Alright, they don't. They are at 11. Now, do I take this out? I don't think so. This pushes my opponent to 7 mana. I haven't seen any of the big, like, Oblivion Sower style Eldrazi from this deck list. I think my opponent has a bunch of colored spells in hand that they can't cast. Is this a Dismember? Yeah, this is a Dismember, sure. I have another one, so like this is great for me. I think there's a good chance I just play Agatha's Soul Cauldron and punk my opponent. I will take that damage. Cool. More mana. That's great for me. Play Urza Saga. Play Agatha's Soul Cauldron. Damping Sphere now for the extra +1/+1 counter. Yeah. Walking Ballista. Ing Spawn. Go to combat. Declare attackers. Send this in. If I remove... This is going to be a 6/6. If I remove 2 counters, that's 4. Okay, I should just try this now. Yeah. Put my +1/+1 counter here. With the first spawn token gone, my opponent can't dismember around the ward cost anymore. So, ping you. Ping you. This is 4 direct damage with 3 Walking Ballista damage to follow it up. Down to 3, 2, and 0. I think my opponent lost that game when they kept a hand that had 2 Chalice of the Voids. I say it again and again and again, but hands that have lock pieces but not a reasonable follow-up don't end up being keeps. and I got way more turns for my clunky hand to come together than I really should have. Now that being said, overall thoughts on the deck list. Let's resort this by mana value here. This is I would say, a well-constructed deck that has extremely high variance. I think the weakest part of the deck is the Metalworker stuff, like, by far. There are some really cool dream scenarios where you, like, turn 1 in Emry, then turn 2, you put Metalworker into the graveyard off the Emry trigger, you use Agatha's Soul Cauldron to turn your Emry into Metalworker, and you pop it off just really, really hard. There's kind of this problem with the Metalworker in that these cards, and probably also the Patchwork Automatons, are things you want to play out before the Metalworker would come down. And that is reducing the artifact count for the Metalworker, meaning that sometimes you do resolve a Metalworker and untap with it, but it's maybe only making like 2 mana. And if you want that sort of mana acceleration, you know, the Grim Monoliths, the Basalt Monoliths of the world probably do so more safely or efficiently. When this deck starts working, it's a really intricate, like, net of cards. Maybe in the early rounds, more hands than I thought were capable due to, like, Emry and possibility of Agatha's Soul Cauldron. Like an Emry that mills you into a Soul Cauldron enables you to do some cool nonsense. Creature count somewhat low in this deck, so you won't always be able to just feed +1/+1 counters onto things. But this is pretty cool design. There's some moving parts that I didn't see when I initially looked at the deck list. There's some stuff that didn't come up in the league. So Minamo can untap the One Ring. That didn't really come up in this league. Emry reducing the cost of Otawara didn't come up in this league, I don't think. As far as a final judgment goes, what do you want to be playing against with this deck? Like, why would you want to register this deck? You're relatively soft to combo. You don't have counterspells, not even in the sideboard. You don't really have removal outside of Walking Ballista, which is slow removal that is better at hitting small creatures. Psychic Frog threatens to be larger than Patchwork Automaton. Psychic Frog messes with the graveyard for the purposes of Agatha's Soul Cauldron. This is a neat deck list that I think I would enjoy playing more casually, but is perhaps not the most competitive thing around. But I like the overall design. We're going to play this again. I would try to cut these cards. I would want a 4th Patchwork Automaton. Patchwork Automaton plus Agatha's Soul Cauldron is really cool. I would need a few more copies of some creature with a cool activated ability. I'm not sure what that is off the top of my head. And then you would have 1 flex slot. I mulliganed a lot today for not having enough mana, even with 27 mana sources. If we get a little bit lower to the ground, or that'll be that direction for you all. If we get a little lower to the ground, maybe that smooths some things out. Maybe you can play 1 more City of Traders to more effectively play Patchwork Automaton on turn 1. Maybe you play a 2nd basic island. Oh, I know what I want that last singleton to be. I want that last singleton to be main deck lifelink in some capacity, be that Shadowspear or Basilisk Collar. I don't think Basilisk Collar plus Walking Ballista is too crazy. Like, I nearly assembled that in 1 game. I just needed a touch more time. Yeah, but that was a fun way to spend an afternoon. I enjoyed playing that a lot. Porter, thank you very much for a dealer's choice donation deck list to make that happen. And folks, should you need some cards to play this for yourself, toamagic.com, promo code ThrabenU to let them know that I sent you. All right, I hope you have a great rest of the day. See ya.